So back in 2023, there was this incredible plan on the table that really felt like the future. We're talking about a massive economic corridor linking India all the way to Europe, right through the heart of the Middle East. It was this grand vision of cooperation and progress. But then, literally just 1 month later, that vision collided with a brutal new reality. So today, we're going to dig into a bold proposal that basically argues that original plan is dead. And that's the really important question: what comes next?
All right, so here's the game plan. First, we'll look at what exactly went wrong with the original idea. Then we'll dive into this ambitious new concept called IMEC 2.0. We're also going to unpack why the big global players are still so invested in this, zoom in on the critical choices facing Israel, and finally, explore how you could actually turn this huge vision into something real.
Okay, so first things first. Let's talk about the original dream for this corridor and the harsh reality it completely crashed into.
So, this thing, the India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor, or IMEC for short, it was a huge deal when it was announced at the G20. The big idea was this game-changing network of ships and trains. But you gotta understand, this was never just about moving stuff faster from point A to point B. Oh no, it was a massive geopolitical statement, the kind of project designed to create new trade arteries, and maybe, just maybe, bring some old rivals a little closer together.
And then, just a month later, everything changed. The ground just completely shifted from under everyone's feet. The war in Gaza sent these massive shockwaves across the entire region, and the political reality was just fundamentally altered. All those public handshakes and optimistic agreements from 2023, suddenly they didn't just seem difficult, they seemed politically toxic, basically impossible.
And that right there brings us to the absolute core of this analysis. The argument is that in this new world, a simple, straight line for transport isn't just hard to build, it's completely out of date. It's strategically obsolete. It's just not enough to handle the deep and complex new challenges the region is facing.
So, what do? Well, this is where it gets really interesting. The paper we're looking at proposes this pretty radical rethink they call IMEC 2.0. And the core idea? It's actually brilliant. It says, hey, stop thinking about this as just a single road. Instead, you need to start seeing it as a multi-layered, super resilient network. Okay, let me put it this way. IMEC 1.0, the original plan, was basically a highway, right? It's direct, it's efficient, but if there's a roadblock, a political crisis, a conflict, the whole thing just grinds to a halt. IMEC 2.0, on the other hand, is designed to be more like a smart grid. It's a whole, flexible architecture with different functional layers working together. It's built for resilience, which is the key word here. That means you can still make progress in one area, even if another one gets totally stalled by politics.
So how does this smart grid actually work? Well, it's built on 5 interconnected layers. You start with the foundation, the physical stuff, the ports and the rails. That's your backbone. But then you start layering things on top. You've got a secure digital layer for trade and data. You've got a climate and energy layer for things like green energy grids. There's a humanitarian and stabilization layer for reconstruction. And crucially, you have this quiet, behind-the-scenes diplomatic layer to make sure things keep inching forward, even when the politics get loud and messy.
Okay, so with all these massive challenges, you might be thinking, why is anyone even bothering with this anymore? And that's what's so fascinating. All the major global powers are still at the table. They're still interested. But, and this is the key, they're all there for very, very different reasons.
What you're looking at here is a really complex web of overlapping and sometimes competing interests. You've got the United States, India, the EU, the UAE, Saudi Arabia. I mean, none of them share the exact same goal, but somehow all their different strategic paths lead them to the same conclusion. A connected corridor like this is absolutely vital for their future. So let's break down exactly why.
All right, so for the US, a big part of this is about creating a real, credible alternative to China's massive Belt and Road Initiative. For India, this is a cornerstone of their Act West strategy, a way to really connect with new markets. The EU, well, they're looking for more resilient supply chains, so they're not so dependent on Russia or China. And then you have the Gulf states. For them, this is a masterclass in strategic autonomy. They're balancing their ties with everyone, the US, China, India, to maximize their own influence on the world stage.
Now, it's really important to remember who this analysis was written for: Israeli decision makers. And for them, it puts a really stark choice on the table. It basically says, you can use this IMEC 2.0 idea to completely re-anchor your position in the region, or you can do nothing and risk getting totally left behind.
And this slide really boils down the core dilemma for Israel.
On one side, you have the strategic goals: rebuild its standing in the region, find a pathway to relations with Saudi Arabia. And you have the tools to do it: a world-class innovation economy, key port infrastructure. But on the other side of the ledger, the challenges are just massive: a major crisis of legitimacy, the absolute need to include the Palestinians in a meaningful way, and of course, deep political divisions back home.
But here's the most urgent warning in the entire paper. It argues that the biggest risk for Israel isn't trying this and failing. No. The biggest risk is just inaction. It's delay. Because while everyone is debating, rival powers like Turkey, Russia, and Iran, they're not waiting around. They're already busy building their own competing corridors, and you can bet those routes are designed to bypass Israel completely.
So you have this grand vision, but the region is incredibly tense. How on earth do you even start something this ambitious? Well, the answer in this proposal is actually surprisingly practical. It says, don't try to build the whole thing at once. That's a recipe for disaster. Instead, you start small. You start with smart, targeted pilot projects that can deliver a high impact with pretty low political risk.
So instead of a giant ribbon-cutting ceremony for a railway that doesn't exist yet, the idea is to launch very specific pilot programs. Things you can actually do now, like, say, a digital trade and fintech corridor linking India, the UAE, and Israel, just to prove the system works, or a smart border initiative with Jordan and the West Bank, using new tech to make crossings smoother. And this is critical. It also proposes things like modular solar grids and desalination plants for Gaza, directly linking humanitarian aid and stabilization to this bigger regional picture.
And that's where this all comes together. See, these smaller pilot projects, they're not just random experiments. They are the building blocks. They're designed to build trust, to create momentum, to prove that cooperation is possible. And all of that is needed to get to the grand prize. Those huge foundational projects like Rails for Peace, the ultimate vision of a rail line connecting Haifa's port all the way through Jordan and to the Gulf.
So when you boil it all down, the paper ends with this really powerful idea. This whole IMEC 2.0 concept, it isn't really just about concrete and steel. It's not just about infrastructure. It's a geopolitical test. It's a challenge, specifically to Israel, to lead with a new vision, to shift its role from being just a military power to becoming a truly constructive partner in the region. And that leaves us with the big final question, doesn't it? Is this whole IMEC 2.0 idea a realistic blueprint for cooperation, a genuine path forward? Or is it just a beautiful vision that's ultimately too ambitious for a Middle East that is still so deeply fractured? Honestly, the answer to that question is probably going to shape this region for decades to come.